So Marquez is 36. We know he's a fighter. He's not going anywhere anytime soon, and he's on top of his game, so he wants big fights. Does he have any shot at fighting Pacquiao?
You know, Steve, I mean, stranger things have happened. I mean, as it stands right now, no. You know, and that's why in my column on the fight, I was critical of Floyd Mayweather for ducking Pacquiao, and I was critical of Bob Arum for ducking Marquez. You know, the fight everybody wants to see is Mayweather-Pacquiao. So we're not going to see that on November 13th. But Juan Manuel Marquez is available. They fought two great fights. The first fight in 2004, Marquez was knocked down 3 times in the first round, got up. I thought he came back to win the fight, but certainly it was a very, very close fight. It was ruled a draw. Terrific fight. They don't fight again until 2008 for a super featherweight title. Again, a terrific fight. Split decision that went Pacquiao's way. Again, I thought Marquez won, but I can accept a Pacquiao win. But it was a great fight. So now, why not have them fight the third time? I mean, this is going to be the fight. I think the Mexican fans are going to be behind Marquez more so than Margarito. Certainly, the Pacquiao fans know what a tough fight it was. You know, I think that would be a selling point to them. I just don't get it. But Bob Arum, you know, when I asked him about the possibility of Marquez last week, you know, he shouted, no way, wasn't interested in it. I think the only way that the Marquez-Pacquiao fight would happen, the trilogy fight, is if Arum just runs out of luck getting Margarito licensed. He thought he had Monterrey as an option, and I think Monterrey is still there, but now the funding wasn't as good as he thought it was going to be, Steve. So they're looking to the state to kick in some funding, and the state down there has a lot of issues, and of course, you know, there's been a lot of that drug violence there, and the state's spending a lot of money trying to, you know, clean that up. So they're not, you know, right now in a position to, you know, pay a ton of money for a boxing match. There's been talk of Abu Dhabi. They were supposed to deliver a $5 million letter of credit to Arum last week to prove that they were serious. They didn't do it. They got an extension until August 2nd, which is on Monday. So does that happen? You know, do they come forward? I doubt that they do. So now, if you don't get the foreign money, now you got to find a state in the U.S. that's going to license Antonio Margarito. Then, if they do license him, and let's say Texas does, and I think Texas is probably liable to do that. If Texas gives them a license, then you've got the problem of overcoming the thing with Margarito, where there is great resistance. I mean, the public doesn't like this. You know, I'm not happy with what happened January 24th, 2009, Margarito and Mosley. But I say, hey, Margarito served the penalty he was given. So it's like, hey, if you go to jail for a crime, you know, whatever that crime is, if you rob a bank and you serve the, you know, penalty, when you come out, then you should be able to get a job and not, you know, not people say, well, you should serve a longer sentence. You know, it doesn't mean that I like the fact that you robbed the bank, but, you know, you served the sentence the judge gave you and now you're out. Same thing with Margarito. But I think given the fact that the public is throwing up and, you know, really saying they don't want this, that, you know, that might lead to a Marquez fight. But the feelings between Golden Boy and Top Rank are so bitter right now that, you know, that's going to make it tough.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's definitely politics on the other side. It's not just Top Rank, it's Golden Boy. And I'll give you the example. You talked to Oscar De La Hoya during the week. Hey, the idea of a 140 tournament is completely intriguing. They were pushing, hey, if Marquez wins, we want him in there, you know, with Bradley, with Devon Alexander. Maybe we expand it to a field of 4 or 6 and, you know, do the same thing that the Super 6 has done. But then you talk to Richard Schaefer after the fight last night, and he's like, nope, really bad idea. And you just get the message like, hey, Khan's our guy. We are not putting him in a situation where we don't get to pick the fights and make him as big as possible.
Right. You know, that's the problem. I mean, right now you have Devon Alexander, who a lot of people think is the number one guy. He's promoted by Don King. There's Timothy Bradley, who I think is the number one guy. He's promoted by Gary Shaw. You know, then you have a couple other guys that are promoted by Golden Boy that are in that mix. And I think, you know, Golden Boy's feeling is, hey, we have a lot of the good 140s. You know, they have Maidana, they have Amir Khan, they have Victor Ortiz, they have Marquez, they have Michael Katsidis, who said at the press conference he wants to move up. Katsidis is the number one contender for Marquez's WBO lightweight title, but he said he wants to move up. He could theoretically fight Marquez at 140. So, yeah, I mean, Golden Boy, you know, I think will just say, hey, you know, let's keep this in-house. And in essence, you could get a tournament without having a quote-unquote tournament. You know, the key thing for boxing fans is not to have a trophy trophy presented at the end. It's to get all the good fights. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. We as fans just want to see the good fights. I don't care how they're done. But, a tournament's a nice, clean way. We can have a bracket. We can follow it. It would be good because there's so many good fighters, but it doesn't appear that's going to happen.
Well, and that's the thing is Golden Boy will rip on Top Rank because Top Rank's keeping Pacquiao money in-house, and he's going to, I'm sure Arum, if it's Margarito next, after that, he'll try to build up a Cotto fight somehow, and Paul Williams and Golden Boy will be on the outside, and anyone who wants to fight at 147 or 54 will be on the outside, but Golden Boy is going to do the same exact thing with their 140 fighters. They're going to keep all those fights in-house.
Yeah, they're the two most powerful promoters, and here's the thing. Golden Boy has great relationship with HBO. They've had a very good and long relationship with HBO, and that's going to continue. I mean, that's what we've seen with the Danny Jacobs situation, where HBO is trying to build up Danny Jacobs. HBO theoretically is not a promoter, but by kind of trying to get the fighter, build him up again, it's obvious that they have interest in seeing a promoter succeed. Top Rank has not had such a good success, with it, but Top Rank I think is clearly the number one promoter in boxing. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And so you got the two most powerful entities out there, and then you throw HBO into the mix, and kind of that's the three most powerful entities in boxing, and they're kind of doing things their way. At the end of the day, I don't care who promotes the fights. I want to see the great fights. I want to see these guys fight each other. I want to see Bradley and Alexander. I want to see Amir Khan and Bradley. I want to see Maidana and Khan. I want to see Marquez and Alexander. I want to see all these fights. I want to see the guys fight each other and put them in and do it. I have a column coming out on Yahoo Sports this week talking about the division. And if Kevin Cunningham ran boxing would be a lot better shape right now. Kevin Cunningham is the trainer of Devon Alexander, and he's basically saying, put them all in a hat, pull two names out, and let them fight, or let's just get the top two guys and have them fight now. Yep. He's willing to put Devon Alexander against anybody. And that's the kind of attitude you need to have. Let's put the best guys in and let's, let them fight. And you know what? And why not put Manny Pacquiao in that mix? Manny Pacquiao can make 140. The heck with him going to 150. Have him fight at 140. Put him in that mix. And can you imagine the kind of fights we're going to get if you had Manny Pacquiao, Juan Manuel Marquez, Devon Alexander, Timothy Bradley, Marcos Maidana, Amir Khan, Michael Katsidis? I mean, it's unbelievable the fights we would have. Yep. Makes too much sense.
Well, Pac-Man's definitely out of the mix. Is Khan out of that mix? You mentioned the three guys that potentially four guys he could fight. Are they going to find a way for Amir Khan to avoid all of these guys in his next fight?
It's going to be interesting. Here's what I think is going to happen. Part of it is going to be what happens with Marquez. There's a lot of moving parts there. If Marquez decides that he wants to, he can't get the Pacquiao fight. If he gets the Pacquiao fight, he'll fight pretty much whatever weight Pacquiao says. Right. He wants to fight that bad. So let's assume he doesn't get the Pacquiao fight. Then Juan Manuel has to make a decision. Do I want to fight at 140 or do I want to defend my titles at 135? If he stays at 135, I think Juan Manuel will then fight Michael Katsidis and defend his WBO title and go forward as the lightweight champion. If he decides that he wants to go to 140, I think the fight that he'll take then would be the Amir Khan fight. If Marquez decides to fight Katsidis, I think Golden Boy will then make the Khan Maidana fight. So there's a lot of moving parts, and Manny Pacquiao is going to play a role in all of this because who he decides to fight is going to have an impact, and who Bob Arum decides to match him with. And I want to be clear on this, Steve. I'm not accusing Manny Pacquiao of ducking anybody. I'm accusing Bob Arum of not wanting to put him in with other fighters. Bob Arum is wanting to keep him in-house with Top Rank. So I don't want anybody saying that Manny Pacquiao, I said Manny Pacquiao is ducking fighters. He's not. But he is going to play a key role in this. Whoever he fights is going to dictate what else happens in the rest of the division.